So, good morning, good evening, good night, good day to you all, to everyone, all KMers around the world that are with us today. And today we have Rodolphe de Souza, a great friend, one of the KMGN's leaders, chair for 2018 and 2019, and a great KMer that won too many prizes and so many awards. And he will be speaking with us today about design thinking, and not design thinking as in general, but oriented to knowledge management. Before he starts, I want to add a few to give a few comments. We had two people who gave us feedback regarding our breakout rooms. Today we will not hold a breakout room because of a lack of time, but we will try adding these breakout rooms to as many sessions as we can. We know that it's not a knowledge cafe. We don't have the time to really fully develop the knowledge in the teams, or to speak too long about them after we end these breakout teams. However, we do believe that even sitting together 10 minutes and thinking together about the issue gives a lot of insights, a lot of understandings, and gives an intimate communication with other KMers that we don't have in the huge room of 70, 80, 90 people who join every time. So these are two reasons that we think that it's important. To have the opportunity to see a small amount of people every time, of different people, and to meet and speak with them KM. And B, it opens our minds as to the session itself. C, we are trying to see what to do with the outcomes. I worked very hard, and I had two of the topics, the second one and the third one, agile, and what it was last week that I worked on change management. I prepared and I took all what you said and put it in paragraphs. I'll tell you the truth, it's a leverage point regarding what we had before, but it's really not good enough because it's bottom lines without the explanations. So it's now shared with all. So, and if someone wants to go into it and to add some explanations, to add some details to part of the sentences, to things that he or she believes in, you will be more than blessed. Speak with me. I will give you the files. I will enable you to access them in edit mode. And whoever has the passion for it can help us in turning these bottom lines into a really body of knowledge. So I'm stopping here because Rodolphe has too much to share with us. But please remember, we're trying to dance here, many dances at one time. So whoever can help us make it better, please speak with me offline and we will find a way. Thank you. And Rodolphe, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Moria. And welcome everyone to this session on design thinking.
Yeah, Rodolphe, before you start, Moria, could you mute everyone and unmute Rodolphe himself? Yeah, yes. Because there's a lot of background
I'll unmute myself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so my interest in design thinking was actually aroused in 2014, when you may have heard of this company from India, IT company called Infosys. So Vishal Sikka, who had come from SAP Labs, he became the chairman. And Infosys was lagging behind TCS, Wipro, etc. Earlier, they were the leaders. And he said that I am going to use design thinking to turn around the company. And this was the largest design thinking program in the world. They have more than 150 to 200,000 employees. In 6 months, he got all of them trained. And in 1 year, 3 months, the company turned around its performance. So when we say that big ships cannot turn around fast, this was an example where in 1 year, 3 months, he used design thinking to turn around a big elephant. And that's what got me interested in what is design thinking. 1 second. So design thinking is actually a process that can be learned. It can be used to solve complex problems. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about design thinking and how it can be used for knowledge management. Importantly, it is a very highly collaborative and co-creative process. Now, design thinking was made famous by IDEO, and Tim Brown, who was the CEO of IDEO, he has written this book, Change by Design. I love this book. I would recommend that as a resource. You can read it. At the end, I'm going to give you a number of resources that you can connect up with. But this is one book. And I like this thought. Somebody had put up a mind map of the entire book. So my suggestion is that whenever you are listening to something new, if you could also do a mind map, it's a very quick way of framing the learnings into your mind. And mind mapping is one of the techniques or one of the tools that we have in design thinking. Maurya, mute everyone, I'll unmute myself again. And Maurya had conducted a session on mind mapping, so she'll give you the resource. Maybe you could post it out here in the chat box, Maurya. Now, from the next slide onward, a page number will appear on every slide. If you have any questions, please post the question referring to the slide number in the chat box, and I'll ask Maurya to help me out whenever there's a question from any one of you. I'm perfectly okay taking questions during the session itself. Okay, now, if you want to know the history of mind mapping, in 1987, Peter Rowe, he was a director of urban design at the Harvard University, and he wrote this book called Design Thinking, How Architects Use the Lens of Inquiry in Their Designs. And that's when the term design thinking came about. Now, design thinking today is a very critical skill that everyone needs to have. When the World Economic Forum releases its annual report on the future of skills, future of work in 2015, they spoke about Careers 3.0. And you can see right in the middle here, novel and adaptive thinking and a design mindset is so much required for the future. Even in the current Future of Jobs survey of 2020, which was released in October 2021, you can see critical thinking and analysis, problem solving are right up there. So these are increasing their relative importance, and design thinking is one of the techniques that we need to learn. So if you can see analytical thinking, complex problem solving, these are critical skills as we go forward for the Future of Jobs 2025 also. Now, design thinking has become very popular. Some years back, I was very impressed when I saw this advertisement that in Indian Institute of Ahmedabad, Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad and IIT Bangalore and INSEAD were offering a course on design thinking. But today, any college worth its salt offers a course on design thinking. So why is there this sudden and exponential interest in innovation? Actually, you need to think of the age from 1777 to around 1905. This was the time when the most number of inventions were created, and these were disruptive innovations. It changed the way the world worked, the way the world moved around. And why did this happen? Because there were so many improvements in chemistry, in physical properties, in management, etc. All these different fields came together to enable this transformation to happen. And today we are in the industrial age 4.0. There are so many advances in terms of our biosciences, electronics, cognitive sciences, materials, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, robotics. All these are converging. And design thinking is required to solve some of our biggest challenges that we have today. Therefore, the sudden interest, if you see all the management institutes, all the IITs, the technology institutes are offering courses on design thinking. So while you may be doing research, you may be doing innovations in your area field, how do you bring it all together? And that is what design thinking helps you to do. So just to give you a quick, I would say, recap of the types of innovation that are there. So we have got an innovation metrics. So this is by George Sattel. You can go on the internet and you can check it out. So this is when you have a domain which is not well defined and a domain which is well defined, and you have a problem which is not well defined and a problem which is well defined. So the types of innovation that you use basic research when the problem and the domain is not well defined. When the problem and the domain is well defined, you use sustaining innovation. You sustain the innovation through R&D labs, through outsourcing. And if you want breakthrough innovations where the problem is not well defined, but the domain is well known, then you start using skunkworks, basically experiments. You use Mavericks, you use open innovations. Okay, and for disruptive innovation is when you use a VC model, you use innovation labs, and the 15-20 rules like Google, etc., have 15% of your time should be spent on innovative products. This is for disruptive innovation. And on the right, I'm giving you examples of these. So I still a lot of people say 3M is a innovative company, but I put it as basically basic research. They keep plugging away at problems which are not well defined, domains which are not well defined, and come out with products for the future. Whereas if you see in breakthrough innovations, the Caper is a company that has actually created this shopping basket. Okay, so that is self-checkout. You can do your self-checkout when you want to leave a store. It is a no-brainer, but it is a breakthrough innovation. So you put all your stuff into it, and then you just wheel it out to your car outside. It checks you out automatically. You don't have to stand in a queue. Okay, so this is problem was well known, but here they were able to use technology and they were able to create a breakthrough innovation. Disruptive innovation is something like Meta. So while the domain is known, they have actually gone ahead and created a disruption. Now everyone is following them, whether it is a Microsoft, whether it is other companies, everyone is now talking of the metaverse. So they have actually disrupted the entire market. So where does design thinking fit in? Design thinking fits in here on breakthrough or disruptive innovations. Okay, and I'll share with you why I'm saying this as we go forward. So now one of the first myth is that the Steve Jobs myth. We all believe that it takes a specially gifted person to create innovation. Not so. With design thinking, it is not so. Now, when you think that this myth that, problems need to be solved by a specially gifted person, it undermines the confidence and the experience of managers. So it is very important for us to realize that very few people are like Steve Jobs who walk the earth. You need people like Steve Jobs. I'm not saying you don't need him, but you also need to have belief in yourself. And there is a process in design thinking that can help you to overcome the most, I would say, complex problems through innovative solutions. Now, why this myth has come about is because this is the normal box that people think about innovation. That first there's some inspiration, then there's ideation, and then there is implementation. Okay, so while this is a model that most people know of, there are other models that we need to look at also. So Tim Brown, whom I referred to earlier, his take on design thinking is that it is a human-centered approach. So this is the essence of design thinking. It's not a definition. He says it's a human-centered approach to innovation that draws from the designer's toolkit to integrate the needs of people, the possibilities of technology, and the requirements for business success. All what is emphasized is mine. He has not emphasized on anything. He's just given an overall the essence of it. And this is basically what it is, the sweet spot. When there is a desirability, there is a feasibility and a viability. So we rely a lot when we talk of the human-centered approach on empathy, we are observing and we are working alongside people. So this is the empathetic part, the human-centered part, which we will be prioritizing customer needs. Okay, not what we feel, but we talk to customers. So it's a human-centered approach. When we say from a designer's toolkit, whenever you give an work to a designer, what does the designer do? The designer walks in the shoes of the user. The designer asks a lot of questions of the user. What are you going to use the premises for? What is going to be the people who are coming in? You know, so many questions are asked. This is really what we talk about, the human-centered approach, and therefore the designer's approach to this innovative way of working. Design thinking is an anomaly because when you go through the process, what I'm going to talk to you about, it's not so much about thinking, but it's a process. So this is the model that is followed by the Stanford School of Design, and it has been made famous by IDEO. Okay, so it has got basically 5 stages. First is empathize, where you learn a lot about the customer. Okay, now normally when we do any research, what we do is that we just ask a few questions. Empathy is about walking in the shoes of the customer. Okay, so it broadens and expands our horizon. Okay, and I'm going to take you to a practical example of how this happens. Okay, then you get to defining the problem. Now, when you define the problem, it is based on what you have learned in the first stage. So it avoids our own beliefs, projecting our own beliefs as to this is what the customer requires. Then we come to the ideating part. Okay, so this is not one big idea, but many ideas. Okay, so this is very different from the way in which we normally use design thinking. Okay, and then it is a prototype. There's a lot of iteration at this stage. You build you build a portfolio of options for the customers, and then you actually test it out with the customers. So you fail early, fail fast in order to succeed. Now, this is the theory part of it, and I'll take you through it as we go forward on the different models that are there. If you go to Google and you search, there are many models. You need to use an appropriate model. Now, on the left here, what you see is the IDEO. IDEO has made this famous. This is from the Stanford Design School, and there are different models, but basically they are all being derived from this particular process. You need to see what is appropriate to you. So let's start off by busting some myths. The first myth is that innovation is a black box. It's a tangled web. You need Steve Jobs to come and untangle the web. You need magic for this. So how can I successfully apply design thinking to my own organization and my work? So this is where I'm going to take you through the entire stages. Now, the $ on the right, you can replace it by productivity. Whatever is the issues that you're facing, I would like you, as I'm talking to you, if you could write down one of the major challenges that you are having. I will now take you through the process, and then I will take you through a practical example using a toolkit that you can use for design thinking. So actually, it's a systematic series of questions that you keep asking. The first thing is, whenever you're starting any design thinking project, you need to stay in the question. We always love to jump to answers. But the first thing is you need to stay in the question. What exactly is the problem I want to resolve? I want to get from where I am to the $sign. Now, if I look at the $sign, it could be a productivity sign, it could be any sign. What we need to ask ourselves is that what will a possible solution be? We are not looking at the actual solution, but we're looking at the outcome. If you are asked that, can I increase the revenues today from X dollars to so many dollars? Okay, you need to start thinking what it entails, okay, rather than how it has to be done. Design thinking will answer the question how. Okay, but what is it that you're looking for at the end of the day is what you need to be asking yourself. Okay, so you need to, what design thinking is actually builds a bridge rather than a magic wand to jump from here to there. So it helps you to build a bridge. The first question is, what is? Now, this is an accurate assessment of the current reality. The hallmark of design thinking is it's a very data intensive process. What we normally love to do, the moment we are given a problem, we love to jump into solutions, into brainstorming, etc. But this first part explores the current reality along with the prospective customers. We walk in their shoes. So we need to get an accurate assessment. So this is a lot, it's a very data intensive part. So design thinking, the hallmark of design thinking is data intensity and user driven approach. If you do not follow this, you tend to then use your own thinking, what could be a possible solution. But if you stay in this part, you can actually create superior solutions which you never know really existed. Okay, so you'll identify a great solution without really knowing what it looks like just by staying in this particular part. Okay, and there are toolkits for this. I will take you through a very practical knowledge management example after I finish this first part. The second question is, what if? This is the possibility stage. So here we are focusing a lot on possibilities. What if anything were possible? This is the brainstorming stage. Now, brainstorming is not like normal brainstorming what we do here. There are trigger questions based on the data that we have got earlier. From the problem that we have earlier, what the clients have said, what the customers have said, there are trigger questions. So we shift our focus from constraints to possibilities. Normally, whenever we are doing any innovation or whenever we're doing problem solving, what do? We first look at the constraint. Oh, I don't have the budget. I don't have the people capability. But here we look at multiple possibilities like Lego blocks, and then later on we then put them all together and see what is a concept that we can derive from the concepts that we are building. Okay, this is the what if stage where we are focusing on possibilities. We then move to the what wows. I told you the sweet spot: feasibility, desirability, and capability. That is, the technology is possible. So this is the sweet spot, what wows. So now we develop concepts as business hypothesis, okay, and we keep testing our assumption. Now is the time when we actually make hard choices. So if you see in the previous wave, here the wave is huge. Here we are narrowing down the wave. Actually, we are coming down, we are making hard choices out here. And we are seeing what can actually give us significant upside to the client. And this is where you create prototypes which the customer can interact with and give you feedback on. And then finally, we look at what works. So this is the stage when all your concepts will actually translate into prototypes, and you go into the market, you do the testing, etc. So this is basically learning in action. So where you trade off, there are trade-offs between your assumptions and what works. The whole idea is that if you fail early, you minimize your costs of conducting experiments. So you normally do low fidelity prototypes with the customer at this stage. So this is what design thinking is about. It is about human-centered. So what is about, this is human-centered. This is possibility-driven. What if? This is option-focused. And finally, this is an iterative process. So this is the process of design thinking. We are not using guesswork. And this model is from the Darden School of Business. I'll tell you why I like this model compared to the Stanford model. Stanford model is a lot, and this is what IDEO uses. So there is actually, you can use any model. There are other models also, you can use other models. But I prefer for knowledge management, for complex problems, to use the Darden School of Business model. What is, what if, what wows, what works. Whereas if I'm doing a project with a client who's looking at a prototype or product, then I prefer the Stanford School, which is about empathy, definition, ideation, prototyping, and testing. Okay, but that is my preference. You need to test out what works for you. So this is the process of design thinking, 5 stages, 4 stages. Okay, so If you have any questions at this stage, you can ask me. But now I'm going to jump into a toolkit and take you through a KM example. Are there any questions at this stage? Have I gone too fast?
No, there are no questions that people are asking. May I emphasize that when we're speaking about design thinking, Rudolf is showing how it can be break down to small pieces, very, very logical. But remember that he's all the time involving the experience, involving the emotion. And it's not only working like engineers. That's why it's called by Tim Brown design thinking, because it's also the connection, the interaction between the logical and the emotional together in each of these steps. And Rudolf, please continue.
Yes, thank you, Moria, for clarifying that. Yes, at every stage you involve the user because you are going to look at emotional part of it as well as the functional part of it. Very often we forget about it, but I'm going to bring that out when I'm taking a practical example. So there is a full toolkit available. So when you do this stage, there's something called journey mapping, value chain analysis, and mind mapping. This is at the part of what is. What if involves brainstorming and concept development. What works about assumption testing and rapid prototyping. What works about customer co-creation and learning launch. Okay, and I'm going to take one example from the field of knowledge management so that you can actually see how it works when you are asked a question. So design thinking, as I mentioned, is a deliberate problem-solving technique closely involving the key stakeholders to produce solutions which are superior to what we believe is possible. It is possibilities focused and gives a lot of options. So now I'm going to take you to a problem that I faced in a company where I was employed earlier. We were winning a lot of awards, and Moria mentioned that Rudolf won a lot of awards, etc. So we got some MAKE award, and we had gone to the managing director, and he said, knowledge management is doing well, good. We are winning awards, and this is a challenge he threw to me and my team. Can knowledge management ensure that the competency of every employee is visibly improved? Have any of you faced such a challenge?
Luckily, no.
Luckily, no. Oh, I face this all the time. Even in my current assignment, we have the same issue. Okay, so put yourself now, ask a question, a complex question which was asked to you, and I'm now going to take you through the toolkit which we developed. Okay, now remember, I am talking about an organization in which I work. I'm very familiar with the organization. So if you're not able to get the connection, please ask questions at that stage. Okay, so in case I'm not able to explain clearly about the solution that we are talking about. This is stage 0. When you are given a challenge, you need to stay at this stage 0 and create a design brief. Okay, so you need to stay in the question. You need to visualize the outcome. Now, let me fill this in for you based on the question which was asked earlier. My project description, in short, let me put it like this, is about improving competency. The intent and scope is that every employee should have visible improvement. Okay, and the exploration question is, how do we go about it? What can we call as success? Okay, so these are questions that you need to fill in. You need to stay in the question. Who are my target users? Now, the organization which I worked for had different sales people. So there was direct sales who used to go to home. There was retail sales who used to be in the market. There were those who were corporate sales. Then we had people who were in service, which was also business division, and we had CRM, who do in customer inquiries, etc. So we had 5 different areas of work. So these were the target audience. So what was the research plan? Okay, so what were the expected outcomes? Expected outcomes is very simple, that the sales has to go up of each and every employee. Okay, the success metrics could be in sales, there'll be increased sales or increased customer satisfaction for CRM, or for the service people, increase in the number of annual maintenance contracts. Okay, so this is how you actually create a design brief. This stage normally takes about 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how complex the problem is, how much you are aware of how you need to go about it. Okay, so we took around 2 weeks to sort of figure this out. And then the next stage is what is. If you recall the stages, what is. Okay, so here we have something called journey mapping, value chain analysis, and mind mapping. Now, journey mapping is when you actually go along and meet the client. So here we had salespeople who were in direct sales. Now you can see we can just simply have a meeting with everyone and say, okay, what do you want? How do we go about it, etc. No, it means you actually go on field with the clients. So we went on field with the direct sales people. We went to retail counters. We went, sat down in the call center. We went out with service technicians. Okay. Through this process, now, if you have 5,000 salespeople, even if you go with 5 salespeople, this is really what we call ethnographic and ethnographic studies. So even if you have a small sample size, the richness of the data that comes out is huge. Remember, design thinking is a data-driven approach. So here we are adopting a data-driven approach by meeting the clients, going with the people on the field. So this part is about journey mapping, where you'll get their functional needs as well as the emotional needs. Okay, so you can explain the issue to them that we want to increase your sales, or we want to increase your AMC, you want to increase annual maintenance contracts or your customer satisfaction. And they will be able to give you a lot of problems what they face. Okay, and also at times they'll also start giving you possible solutions. This needs to be recorded. The second part is value chain analysis. Here we went and met all the retailers. We went and met the sales managers. We went and met the customer satisfaction managers. Lot of the value chain where value is either added or value is eroded. We met a lot of the people from the value chain. We did a lot of value chain analysis. What works, what doesn't work. We met the training managers. We met the HR departments. You know, so these are the people who either add value or they deduct value. And then finally, we created mind maps, massive charts where we created mind maps. Why is mind mapping important? You all need to also answer my question. Why is mind mapping important?
To have more clarity.
See, what happens is that you'll start to see patterns, overlaps, patterns, you know, so it is so critical. Moria, you're on mute.
Rudi, there's someone who's suggesting an answer. So, yes. SF, Stuart, dear Stuart from Australia, because it highlights the relationships.
Very true, very true, very true. It highlights the relationships. You'll start to see patterns. You'll see overlaps, okay, which you had not seen earlier. So mind mapping is so vital. It's a tool that we need to use. So this is at the what is stage. And the outcome that comes out is something called the design criteria. So here you now have your design goal. Okay, so the design goal, basically it could be, let me just, so maybe the design goal, many people tell you, I need something that is very intuitive. Okay, so I don't want something which is clunky. Okay, I want to see something which is a one-pager. So now you're getting physical attributes, you're getting emotional attributes. It should be easy to imbibe. It should not create problems for me. Okay, many people feel that, okay, if you are improving productivity, what will happen to me if I'm not able to improve? Okay, and one of the constraints maybe that many people express was, I don't have time to study. So are you going to send me to a classroom? Are you going to insist, I have been working in the field for 20 years. Do you want me to go back and learn? So these are the different constraints that we keep getting. So now your design criteria is starting to emerge from the first stage. So remember, data-driven process. We then move to the possibility stage. What if? This is the brainstorming part of it. And we do not use our own brainstorming. We are informed by the data which is coming out before this. Okay, so keep this in mind. We then use a lot of, when we were doing brainstorming, I recall we did a lot of analogies. So what would McDonald's do? Okay, so McDonald's has training for their people, and it is a very rigorous training that you have. So everyone follows the same pattern. So we started to say that we don't have that. Can we look at a McDonald's? So we look at analogies. We looked at the insurance sector. So much of regulations were changing so fast. How do they ensure that people imbibe those regulations, the new regulatory environment quickly, and are able to give output? So we started looking at analogies through the brainstorming sessions. So we started reframing the questions that we had. So, and we were informed by the design criteria. Then we did the concept development. So here we did co-creation workshops. We called the people in and we did a co-creation workshop. Okay, now I've given some practical advice down there. Do not only involve those who are part of the journey mapping at this particular stage. Don't involve decision makers. You need to have people who have given you the inputs to be part of the concept development stage. Okay. Any questions on this?
Yes, we have a question. We have a question here from Emmanuel from Indonesia. Talking about journey mapping is interesting. Someone needs to collect the data from at least 5 customers to get the clue of the need and then define the idea to cover the needs. Data is important. Here comes my question. Do you have any advice whether we just use big data or data analytics from the e-commerce to see the trend pattern of the customer?
Okay.
Logical, no emotions. Please go on.
Now see, here is where you actually meet the customer face to face. Remember, this is very different. Design thinking is very different. I can have market segmentation. I can have many data analytics, but it doesn't tell me face to face what the customer wants. Data only indicates what has to be done, but it may not be the right solution. So all too often people are using data, but they are not meeting the customer face to face. This is the difference that data design thinking brings about. It requires a lot of face-to-face interactions. Okay, so you'll see a lot of complex problems in the world. People sit in the United Nations and they start creating solutions. Whereas if they actually went down to the field and they realize what is required at that particular area, maybe the solutions will be superior. Okay, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Thank you. We have a question. It's good that I'm muted. From Peter from Switzerland. What is hint the third under brainstorming?
Okay, sorry. If you read David Rock's book, okay, about I forget the name of the book, but just research that. When you're doing brainstorming, normally what happens is that everyone gives ideas. This he calls the first third. Okay, and then when there's a sudden lull, people give a lot of ideas, and normally in businesses, what we've seen, people then work on those. Very few people go to the second third. They say, no, hold on, can we now look at some more ideas? And just keep quiet. Then people use a bit of deeper thinking. So then they come out with the second third. But David Rock says, go to the third third. Wait, don't jump ahead. Give people more time. Say, sorry, this does not work. You need to come back. Start thinking about your experiences. So that's trigger questions, what he does. This is the third third. Okay, read about brainstorming. If you want brainstorming to be effective, you need to go to the third third, not the first third. I hope I've answered that question. Thank you for pointing that out. Now, when you're developing your concepts, you can take mix and match ideas like Lego blocks, and then you can develop your concepts. Okay, now the concepts can come out as napkin pitches. Many people don't like this term because we are not very happy with it. We are not sure how to use it. but we did a lot of napkin pitches at this stage. So we call it learning on the go. Okay, so can we have this thing? We called things like a flip book. We learned from the pharmaceuticals. So we had multiple approaches based on the feedback that we received at the first stage and at the co-creation stage. So could we have flip books? Could we have tabs? Could we have e-learning on the go? Could I get it on my mobile phone? We developed many such concepts. Okay, so what are the need? What are the approach? What is the benefit? What is the competition to this? Main competition was time, data. If you are in a retail store, the shopkeeper hates, the owner hates you to be using your mobile phone. He doesn't realize that because it is a distraction. You're learning something and you just jump to your WhatsApp. Okay, so these are the competition, but you need to actually start developing the napkin pitches. Come to the next stage, what wows. This is the sweet spot. So this is in knowledge management. You can develop many concepts because they are not a physical product. Okay, so these are, you can do a lot of rapid prototyping. It's much easier when you're dealing with a conceptual problem rather than a physical problem. So I love this part because you can create many concepts and you can then test it out. Okay, so here one of the issues that we faced was we wanted a consistent increase in sales. Now, remember the managing director's thing was that, can you improve the competency of visibly improve it of everyone? He did not want it for 1 month or for 3 months. He wanted it for the future. So this really was where we had to develop many different concepts to see what works on a consistent basis. Now, my practical advice down there is go back to the same people who gave the inputs, not the decision makers. See, still I'm emphasizing, don't go to the decision makers. Now is when you do your assumption testing. So will the mobile modules work? Will Flipbook work? Will the daily one learning work? There are different things that come out at this stage. You need to go back. You need to create prototypes, actual tests, actual training material, etc. It's very easy since it's not a physical product that you're producing at this stage. So in your KM problems that you have, it's very good to create multiple approaches. May I move forward, or are there any questions at this stage? Now the output of the what wows is basically now you come into your learning guide. So this is when you're coming to closure. Okay. So what is your strategic intent? The strategic intent is to create this tool so that people are engaged in learning, which helps them to improve their sales or their customer conversion, etc. So that is the strategic intent. What are the assumptions that we've not tested out is that, okay, will it work maybe in rural areas because there's a connectivity issue? Will it work in so-and-so area? So these are the assumptions we've not tested out, okay? And in market, when you go in market, when you go in field, what are the test plan, untested, as well as the success metrics that you're looking for? And what is the capital that you need to be expended? This is when you now start freezing the next part and do a customer co-creation. So you need to keep iterating this part. This is when you bring in the decision makers, because decision makers love to be involved. They like to feel that they are part of the solution. But now you have enough data to show that, yes, otherwise they will come up with their own, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Now you've got data to show that my data shows this, and therefore this is the direction. Okay. This is where you can fail early in order to succeed. Okay, so there's a trade-offs that you can do, and we don't do a pilot launch, we do learning launch. We call it a learning launch because this is where you involve the customer also, and you can have multiple iterations at this particular stage. Okay, you need to justify the budgets, etc. So this is what works. Any questions, Moria?
You get, there are all kinds of discussions, but Balaji loves the phrase learning launch.
I think that we all agree with him.
Thank you. Balaji, by the way, is not only a practitioner, he's also a facilitator for design thinking. So Balaji, if you have any inputs, you could jump in right now.
Thank you, Rudolf. And I mean, you're doing such a fantastic job of walking us through this. So no specific input except, I mean, what I've learned is curiosity and a strong action for bias and an intent to co-create with your community, with your customer and your critics go a long way. So I'll just pause with that.
Correct. This is about co-creation, so thanks for bringing that element in. I briefly mentioned it somewhere earlier, but it's more about co-creation. So this is the output that we had. Okay, so we had something called Expedition Everest. This was a gamified program where we had everyone come to, if you're going to conquer Mount Everest, you have to go to a base camp. So we got everyone to come to base camp for 3 months where they had to study, revise their concepts, go through maybe the demo, the earlier demos, and we had tests for everyone. The next stage was what we call the Khumbu Ice Falls. Okay, so immediately after the base camp, you have the Khumbu Ice Falls. Most people fail there. So we then moved people on where we gave them actually some tests that they had to do on sales, different situations, all live, everything live. Customer examples, they had to revert back with case studies, etc. That look, I was afraid. So these were my type of clients. I never used to tackle big clients, but now I'm tackling big clients. So 3 months was given there where they had to come up with case studies. Then we went into the Valley of Death. Okay, so Valley of Death when most of the people got eliminated. Okay, so as we went forward, we could now start to see that you need to cross the Valley of Death, because then we knew that everyone was now ready to, on a consistent basis, to improve their metrics. Okay, so this was the Expedition Everest. I cannot go into too much detail, but suffice it to say it was a very successful program that improved the competence of everyone. And I am a pioneer in gamification and I love gamification. So for me, this was the ultimate. But this actually came about because the user said, we want something intuitive. We want something that is rewarding. We want something that does not punish. And we want something that will show my progress to myself very easily. And on Expedition Everest, you could actually see how you kept improving. Once people had reached a certain level, they would never actually fall back. So this was a very successful program. So actually, this is the Darden design thinking model, which I have shared with you. Okay, so like I said, you need to stay in the question. Design thinking is a collaborative and a co-creation tool. You get insights before you move forward. Normally what we do, we use our own judgment. Here we never use our own judgment. We use data to take us forward. We drill down to the essence. We cut the clutter. We remove barriers. It is a slow process. Remember this, it's a slow process, but it helps you to accelerate later on. So it also ensures that there are no big failures, okay, because you do quick prototyping, etc., and you have involved the client at every particular stage. So now I have a question. I have two questions, one which is on the screen. My first question is, what was your perception of design thinking before you went through this session? It is not on the screen, but my first question, what was your concept of design thinking? What I have explained is different. Would anyone like to answer that? Or the simple answer is no, it's exactly what I thought it was.
Do you see the notes? What people are saying?
No, I don't see them.
Okay, so I'll help here. Jake said it's a holistic approach to problem solving. Martin says that his previous idea was the design thinking is fluffy and conceptual. Mercy says that an engineering problem-solving technique, may I add, on one hand, engineered, very, very methodic, but on the other hand, very soft. Niraj says, always thought about patterns. Elodie speaks about less structured approach. Niraj speaks about didn't take empathy into consideration, very, very important, this change. Adja adds that it can be used in different contexts, but first time listening about it from a KM perspective, and that sounds different. Jeanne adds that I didn't have a clear picture about design thinking up front, but now better understand that it's a general approach reflected in different models and frameworks. And Annie says that it is a remake of systems engineering lifecycle. That's it for now. I'm sure they have many additional thoughts.
Sure. And my second question is, after having this exposure to design thinking, do you believe that all problems can be addressed by design thinking?
There's a question here, is it a process of KM? Does it contain KM? So it's neither, Ezra. It's not, it's an adjacent discipline or methodology. It's not a discipline, but it's a methodology that has several approaches and several ways how to go forward with it. And it can get the KM flavor when we use it for our needs, but it's not only for us, and it doesn't contain everything we do. So it's not in it and not out us, we overlap.
Yes, and you can use it for
social problems.
Yeah, you can use it for social problems also. It's not just KM problems. You can use it for social problems. You can use it for business problems. Okay, so it's a method. I have shown you how to use it for knowledge management, complex problems. So let me go
to Stuart comes up with an answer to your question. Stuart says, you asked if it's relevant to all needs. And Stuart answers, I'm sorry that I'm interrupting before you say the answer. Stuart says that no, there are simple or clear problems that are much more efficiently solved with waterfall methods. And yes. Annie says that it depends on its scalability.
Right. Okay, so basically it is a myth that all problems should be addressed by design thinking. See, many people take some concept, they hear design thinking and they say design thinking, design thinking, design thinking. It should not be used for every type of problem. You need to use it for wicked problems, okay, where you cannot see the cause and effect. There's no clear definition of the problem, where there's conflicting data. You know, this is where you can actually use it. And when data is available, use open innovation. You don't need to use design thinking. So many of you are familiar with the conniving framework of Dave Snowden. Okay, and this is when you have the ordered and the unordered portions of this. So use open innovation for the ordered part and use design thinking for the unordered issues. You know, so that's really how you could be able to use design thinking. And here are the resources which I promised. Okay, so there are a number of resources that you can use. And these slides will come to you, I guess, so you'll be able to go through this. Okay, so as you can see, here Tim Brown has talked about design thinking for good. There's a playbook. Okay, then Gian Litka actually, she's from the Darden University. She's written a number of books. I am a big admirer of hers because I'm looking basically at KM problems. I find the Darden school of model is much better for these problems. That is my opinion. There are multiple models out there in the market. So you can see so many books out there. You should be comfortable with whatever works for you.
Great. I think that if anyone has questions now, or any comments, we have 5 more minutes. That's time for you to speak up. I hope I was a good voice for you, but now it's your time we hear your voice as well. No one has any questions. Okay, I will ask a question. You know, we opened several meeting rooms, several WhatsApp teams, in order to speak about specific issues. If you feel that opening a room, speaking about design thinking can help us share ideas, share resources, share thoughts, share questions, please write me. And if at least 3 people will ask it, I will open it, and then many others can join. Okay, so yes, Rudolf, do you want to some closing words?
Yes. So what I'd like to thank all of you for your comments, for your questions, etc. at different stages. I hope I've done justice to the topic, because design thinking and knowledge management, since we have used it, I felt that this is something that I can share with you all. Okay, and by sharing a practical example, how to use a toolkit. Okay, so I hope that you've taken away from this session something that you can then think about whenever you have any complex problems or questions that are asked of you. And with that, I close. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you very, very much, Rudolf. Of course, Rudolf can share with us additional ideas. This was just in the last minute, and I was fascinated about Balaji's and Rudolf's knowledge on this issue. Next week, I'll open our brochure, reminding you that all materials are there. We have sometimes we may have some additional changes, but 99% or 90% of things do not change. Next week, I will be speaking about, next week, David Gurtin will be speaking about the great idea and practices of knowledge cafes. And I'm sure that we all heard about David Gurtin and the knowledge cafes he runs worldwide. And maybe even several of you have took part in such cafes. So next week, behind the scenes, he will not only show us what it is, but mainly he will share his ideas and his tips, how it could be performed the best way as possible. So I'm waiting. I hope we will all enjoy the scene. The materials of today, the PDF is already uploaded to our resources drive. So have fun and have a great morning, evening, day, wherever you are. Do better KM. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Excellent session.
Thank you, Moria. Thank you, Rudolf. Thank you, Balaji.
It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good job, Rudolf.
Thank you.